Where are the new cups?
All right. We're recording now. The new cups are Arizona, second from the left. Cincinnati, 3 more in.
Okay.
And then Texas all the way on the other side.
Oh, nice.
Which is the most boring cup for the World Series champions ever.
Huh. That's weird. So, you've been gone.
A little bit.
For a while.
2.5 weeks plus.
Yeah. What did you miss about church life, if anything?
I did miss the fellowship that comes with worshiping with the same body of people week after week. Checking in and encouraging each other and that kind of stuff. Not the committee meetings. No offense to our committees, but that's not why I at least got into ministry. But it's an important part of the role. But yeah, I think just worshiping with our people.
Yeah. Did you attend other churches or did you live stream?
We did
you just not church at all?
We were church slackers on this trip because
you wanted to sympathize with other people that skip.
No. Because it's hard for me to go to a church and turn off that pastor role or to go in and see, like, compare and contrast things they do and maybe we should try that. Like, it's hard to just go to church.
Yeah.
And the other part of it is John Muir has a great quote that said, I'd rather be in the mountains thinking about God than in a church thinking about the mountains. And there was a very worshipful aspect of being so submerged in or immersed in the glory of God's creation out there in the Southwest that not that we didn't feel the need to go to church, but to pop into a random church didn't feel like it necessarily added.
Yeah. How much did you regret taking my recommendation to go into the Grand Canyon?
Well, at different points, that probably varied quite a bit. On the way down into the canyon, I thought it was great. We went 3 miles into the canyon, 2,000 feet down in elevation. And going down, it felt okay. And then we turned around. The first half mile was all right. And then we started going back up. And there were several points in there where... I looked at one of the boys, or one of the boys looked at me, and we said, it's all Jeremy's fault. Not realizing, that as a 40-year-old, taking the recommendation of someone who did it at, 25, 26?
Yeah, between that.
Yeah. That it would be a little bit of a different experience. But we made it. We didn't get stranded in the Grand Canyon. We had plenty of water, which we were grateful for.
Yeah.
It was a good experience overall. And especially to be at that point, 3 miles in, 2,000 feet down, to look up and see where we had come from, and then to look down at where the river still was more than what we had already done, further down than more than another 2,000 feet down, was eye-opening. It was perspective shifting, because it's one thing to stand up on the top and just kind of look down in, even the places where you can see the river. You have no sense of what that distance actually is. But then to get part of the way down, two-fifths of the way down, or whatever it was at that point, and to realize how much more there was, just eye-opening. Similarly, a friend of ours who lives in St. George, Utah, heard that we were going to be stopping at Bryce, and she said, if you can, hike down into the canyon. And that ended up being one of my favorite hikes that we did on the entire trip, because in Bryce, you've got this canyon, but then you've got what they call these hoodoos, which are rock spires that have formed through erosion and wind and water and all that kind of stuff. So they're like
really cool.
vertical pinnacles that form. And to look down from the top of the canyon, you see them all, and it looks like a forest down there. But then to get in and hike in and among them, that was just incredible. Yeah. Incredible. So
I still got to get to Bryce.
Have you not been there?
No. I've been like around it because I've been in that area. And
yeah. You've been to Zion, though.
Zion. Yeah. What you got to go to the Narrows?
We did.
Which is awesome.
Hiked the Narrows because we're going through, we're looking at all the different things we could do. And the boys heard about the Emerald Pool hike. And they're like, oh, we can hike to the pool and we can go in the water. And they're like, no, it says, please don't wade in the water. Please don't. And they're like, oh.
That's how it stays Emerald. By not having middle school boys. High school boys.
What about this other one? Can we go in the water there? No, sorry. And then they heard about the Narrows. And they're like, wait, we can hike in the river?
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, you can. And so they're like, well, then we got to do that one now. Like, okay. So the water was frigid.
That's what I heard.
Frigid, but we hiked about a mile.
That's awesome.
Into the canyon, and Eli was shaking and shivering. But we got about a mile in. Bigger boys wanted to go a little further, so I stayed with Eli. He was sunning himself on a rock like a lizard, and then the other boys went just around the next bend and came back. But incredible experience.
There's nothing to compare to hike wise, like the like physical dynamic of it, but also as you're going around each bend, it's a new image, it's a new perspective. And what I love about slot canyons is then when you turn around, you're seeing the rocks and the curves from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like, oh, it's the same thing, I'm just walking in a different direction, but like it's a different visual aspect to it as well.
The other thing we did a boat trip through Horseshoe Bend and Glen Canyon, all the way up to the dam.
Yeah.
Coming off of Lake Powell.
Great. Now I got to put explicit on this episode too.
But when we were getting on the boat, we saw the people who were getting ready to go the other way and enter into the Grand Canyon and do the 7 to 14 day trip camping along the river. I was like, oh, that might need to be on my bucket list someday, like to go down the Colorado through the whole Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I didn't know you guys were going to do the Horseshoe Canyon boat ride, because then like that's a similar perspective shift within the canyon. And
well, it's something we decided to do as we were going, and after it might have even been after I had the opportunity to hike into Bryce.
Oh, okay.
And how much that had changed the perspective. We started looking like, what's something we could do with Meg so she could get a similar experience.
Now, did you see Horseshoe from the top as well?
We didn't.
Yeah.
No,
you're good. If you're going Grand Canyons.
Yeah.
Like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful and it's nice.
But it was amazing because we're on the river and we go all the way up to the dam, and our tour guide is just amazing. Like, he's telling us all kinds of stuff, and we're getting back down, and as we come back through Horseshoe Bend on the way back, he mentions, well, so this is my fun job, but my regular day-to-day job is I've been the mayor of Page, Arizona for the last 14 years.
What?
And so, like, this guy he's been doing tours on Lake Powell and on the river for like since the 70s, and now he's the mayor of the town. We're on this boat with another family of 6. It's just the 12 of us, and he's given us it was a great experience.
My gosh. So what are you gonna most miss about being out west now that you're back to the Pinelands / suburbia?
I think one of the things you lose in suburban but also forested areas is just a sense of grandeur. Like, when you're in the midst of the trees, your view of the sky might only be so big.
Yep.
But when you're out west, sometimes it just feels like you can see forever. And also, some of these features and elements we were seeing are just so big.
Yeah.
Like to fathom how big it is. Like we might have seen an arch in Arches National Park as we were driving along the road, and we're like, oh wow, look at that arch. And then we hike up to it, and it's like, this is huge. Like, and just to see, like, we don't have anything like that here in New Jersey. Even if you hike up to like the Delaware Water Gap and stuff, like with the way the forests are all around, it still feels close.
Yeah, I'll try and defend New Jersey, even though I'm 1,000% on your side. Say the only thing that for some people is going to the ocean.
Sure.
And the vast infinite going off into the water. You get that, but you usually get distracted by everything that's happening within 50 feet of the shoreline and the boardwalks and all that stuff. So and it's harder to get that like alone time, and it's not focused on the nature. It's like it's a whole environment and culture of itself. Yeah, it's its own thing. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's where out west it's. And for me, like, I'm very much when I see all of that, I think of all the possibilities. Like, oh, look at that giant mountain over there. Imagine hiking that one day. Like, if I lived in this area, I could hike that. And then there's this thing over there. I could hike that and go there or whatever it might be. And like you said, seeing the entire sky or feeling like you're seeing the entire sky and at sunset or sunrise, seeing like the whole rainbow shown, like as you're getting closer, you get these colors, and then it's the big blue, and then like it shifts to the others. But then depending on how the clouds hit, like, I don't know, it just makes every day seem large and different, like as you're in those environments and seeing God at work and shifting things. And that's why, where's the location of the new church? You didn't pick a town?
No.
If you had to pick a town out west to start a church.
I could go just about anywhere.
Come on. One area where you're like, it's in good within driving distance of a bunch of stuff. It like is nice environment, nice weather, nice whatever it might be.
We spent a night with a friend in St. George. Which is just right in the southwestern corner of Utah.
Yeah. You're close to the action, but you're not suffocated by the people.
And they've got a whole bunch of like state parks and stuff even closer than some of the national parks, where they've got some great hiking and stuff, and they've got like 50 some miles of bike paths through the town and all that kind of stuff. So,
what is something from your trip that you learned? Like, what's the biggest lesson or takeaway from the trip? And if you could impart something to people that haven't and or may not have the opportunity to go out west and visit the things you got to visit, what's something you'd want to impart on them?
I think one of the things that I kept thinking about at the stage of life that we are with our family, you know, we've got Tim, who's finishing up his sophomore year of high school. He's got a couple more years of high school before he's gone. We've got Eli, who's old enough to now hang with most stuff. He's going to remember. Like, we took a trip to Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons about 5 years ago, and he doesn't remember like anything from that trip except what he's seen in pictures. So like, he's old enough to be part of stuff. Meg's able to do some of the stuff, and I think what I kept thinking about was, you know, all we have is right now. Like, and in a sense, as Christians, we have eternity and all that. Like, I'm not dismissing that, but as far as life goes, like, we can't live in the past and we can't live in the future. We can only live in the moment that we're given, and we've got to maximize those moments. It would have been very easy for us to continue dreaming about this trip as a someday we'd love to. But we had to reach a point where we said, no, we're going to do it. And we're going to do it while all of our boys are still here. And then you just have to make it happen. It's never going to be easy. There's never going to be the perfect time. You know, we had to leave things behind here that were undone, that were in the midst of happening, that were, you know, Mayfair still happened here, and the hearing with our lawsuit still happened, even though we couldn't be part of it. I couldn't even tune into it. We had to wrestle through some of that and learn to trust God in a different way, even though it was only for a few weeks. There were things we had to be okay with letting go and trusting that God was still going to work in the midst of those things, even while we were gone and not part of stuff. And so I think what I would encourage people to do is, if there is one of those kind of bucket list trips, one of those things, like, so many people have come up to me and said, oh, we'd love to do that someday. Well, then do it. Make it happen. Find a way. Find a time. We camped for 9 of the nights. We stayed with people for 3 of the nights. If we had to stay in a hotel all of that time, like, that trip would not have been possible for our family at this point. But we found a way, and we made a way. And the value that doing that trip together as a family was outranked some of the creature comfort values that we could have had, or the timing things we could have. My boys had to miss a couple of little league games, stuff like that, and that was hard. And that was a choice we had to make together as a family in order to make the trip happen.
Yeah, and I think that connects well with talking about Sabbath last week, even though you have no idea that we even talked about Sabbath at church.
It's true.
Heathen. I can't say it on the But it seems like a large thematically, a large Sabbath of like the intentionality of being, taking in whatever God has prepared for you, but also the trusting that what needs to get done will get done at some point. Like, not that you are the necessary factor for everything in the world around you to function, but that you can be separate apart from it for an amount of time, and things will continue, and you can trust God to work in and through those things. And I'm glad you really made that point of like, make it happen, and what it took to make that happen, because sometimes people hear that and you go, well, I don't make that big pastor money, so I can't, it's not financially in the cards for me right now, or physically in the cards for me right now, and all those things. And so like, I've seen different variations like through my travels where, and I know that like a lot of, I was just talking to someone else the other day about this, of like male Caucasian passing privilege, that like, I can sleep in a car on a random street in a city and not be nearly as scared of a bad instance happening in comparison to other people at different stages or circumstances or whatever it might be. So I understand that aspect, but like the willingness to camp, to car camp, to not eat out every single meal of the day, that like you're going to local grocery stores. And
oh man, can I tell you how many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches were consumed in our van as we were driving? No, I cannot. It was untold numbers.
That sounds better than my cousin. His go-to was just tortillas and peanut butter. Okay. And that was it. And like, you get your carbs, you get your protein, you get like whatever. And so the things that I took, but like, that's never the stuff you really remember or hyper focus on. And I think a lot of people put up those barricades of, well, if I'm going, that means I need to pay for this tour bus trip, whatever thing that covers all the hotels and all this and that. I don't have time and don't know how to organize and figure it all out. And then you're looking at an $8,000 ticket item for what could be accomplished for $1,500. And it also really helped me of trying to be a good steward and budget and like, look at what am I regularly spending money on here that I don't need on the day to day, that's holding me back from being able to do whatever. Like, I forget the average, like if I was a smoker, a pack a day, like the average of what that is a year, I think it's like between $10,000 and $15,000, something like that. And so that's a pretty nice vacation, or that's pretty nice, like mission trip or whatever item. And so just being good stewards of the time and the money and the resources God has provided us, and resources of like people God has provided. People might have different connections to different things that you never knew. Like you said, staying with people. Like the only reason I was able to go to New Zealand when I was 12 because I knew my aunt, and she didn't have kids and wanted to go on a trip with each of the nieces and nephews. And then we had family out in New Zealand that we could stay with.
Right.
And so, like, it was really my aunt covering for the flights and then working on food, and everything else was taken care of while we were over there. So people see that and be like, that's a ridiculously expensive across the world trip. But like for me, I was a kid. I couldn't have earned that or bought that. And my mom definitely couldn't have afforded that. And so there's just different ways to make those kinds of things happen, but then also simultaneously for those that even with those stipulations, even with whatever you have going on in life, that those things may not be possible, even with all the sacrifices you could try and make and corners you could try and cut, is contentment of what God has for us here. I was at a pastor's retreat, and they were like making sure that each pastor got to do their dream travel ticket item. It wasn't the goal of the retreat.
Right.
But like, it was just a conversation that had come up when we were all just hanging out. It's like, if you don't take steps now to make it happen, it won't happen. And through my time in official ministry, but also following God and trying to do what he wants, there's been conversations or moments or opportunities that have blessed me far more than many of the vacations or trips I've been able to take. And it didn't involve even leaving my town. And so the trusting that God can provide just as beautiful and fruitful and perspective shifting things in the same physical location that you are now.
Yeah.
That he can do that, and trusting that he's put you here for a reason, and that kind of stuff, and that heaven's going to be far greater than anything we could witness here on earth. It's just a taste. And so it's beautiful and amazing and encouraging, and the grandeur, like you talked about, of it be like, wow, look at what God has done and created. Imagine the new heaven and the new earth that will take all of the bad away from this world.
Yeah.
And we get to rest in it forever. And so to know that even though it may seem far in the distance, is in comparison to eternity right around the corner for all of us as believers, has always been so encouraging. And so I know it gets me more excited. And it's not that like, I never want to see something else on earth again, right? Like there's so much amazing stuff to see, and cultures and things that God has done and is doing through people, through nature, all of these things that to witness is just so amazing and holy. But to remind myself of it being like a taste, and that we're all invited to have a taste of that through our Sabbath time each and every week.
Yeah. And, our boys, well, at least the 3 younger ones, are excited always about doing the junior ranger badge at each national park.
What is that?
Oh, so the National Park Service has a program called the Junior Ranger Program. And at each national park, you can go to the visitor center. You can ask for a workbook. And then depending on how old they are, they have to do X amount of activities in the thing. That helps them learn about the national park and experience things and whatnot. And then they go back to a ranger at the visitor center when they've completed it. And they walk through and show them the different things they did. And then they take a little junior ranger pledge at each one. And then they get a little pin that's for that national park. There's stuff about, staying on the trail and not picking flowers and so, but in one of those programs that they're doing, one of the activities was, you've seen all this stuff. What can you do when you go back home to continue this spirit of adventure or exploration or whatever, however they worded it?
Yeah.
And, it really got our family thinking about, like, what are some things we can do? Like, we're not able to take a trip like this every year or multiple times a year. Yeah. These are limited experiences, but what can we do on the week to week or the month to month to kind of continue to cultivate this kind of sense of appreciation for the world God has given us, and to do things together as a family. And so we had a good little conversation about what that could look like here in New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, Delaware, wherever. And so it's good stuff. Get outdoors, appreciate what God has done. Yeah. You don't have to drive 6,600 miles round trip to go do it. You could, go rent a kayak on Cooper River, or go for a hike over in Gibbsboro. There's a Blueberry Hill.
Oh, I know about that one. I just learned
Black Rock Preserve.
Preserve 25 minutes, and you're immersed. You can't see another house. You can't, you hear planes every once in a while.
You can go to Wharton State Forest and hike.
Oh, yeah. That you can get lost for 52.3 miles, I think it is. Yeah.
So, all that to say, God's creation's amazing. And we have a opportunity to enjoy it, get a foretaste of what new creation might look like, and to do it together with other people. It could be your family, it could be a friend, it could be whatever, but it's worth it. And it's never just going to happen, so you got to make it happen. Got to choose for it to happen. Well, that's our conversation for today, but that doesn't mean the conversation is over. We'd love to hear your thoughts on these topics as well. To ask a question about anything we've discussed in this episode, or to join the conversation, you can head over to fumccollingswood.org/podcast. Thanks for being part of this conversation.